mute your phone, I think. I think that's on. I just heard you. Who just said, "Can you hear me?" I heard you there.
Yes, this was Art from GM Exclusive.
Hi, Art. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. So it looks like I'm guessing, Derek. If you're on the line, Derek, I think we can hear you.
Can you?
Yeah, we can hear you. We're going to go ahead and get started. And I think you guys have directions to go ahead and mute your phone if you want to mute it, or if anybody's using an air gun in the background, sure would appreciate that too. But we're going to go ahead and get started. First thing I wanted to take a look at today was I did up a chart. And let's go full screen on this chart. Hope everybody can see that. You know, when we talk about what a general ledger is and what are your chart of accounts that are already set up in MaxxTraxx Pro, your trial balance has the entire chart of accounts, which is what is made of your balance sheet and your income and expense report. So if we look at the numbers, if we look at the chart of accounts, what are each one of those accounts and what do they mean? So the 10,000 accounts are basically your assets, cash on hand, bank accounts, your receivables, any parts inventory, as well as your equipment and building if you have one. And then your 20,000 accounts set up in MaxxTraxx are liabilities. And these are, you know, like your payables, all your parts bills, credit card bills, any line of credit you may have, loans on the building, loans on equipment, and of course all the tax withholdings. If you use MaxxTraxx to run your payroll, when you run the payroll checks, they automatically go into these tax withholding, what we call impound accounts, and they're just waiting to be paid out. Now, 30,000 accounts are capital accounts, your initial investment, your owner draw. If you're a corporation, this would be stock. Retained earnings from previous years are automatically generated because the system knows that we're going to go ahead and just, you know, push to the back. We're going to push your monies that you owned to the back. I just muted somebody on the call. Sorry about that, guys. 40,000, of course, and this is the stuff that resets at the beginning of your fiscal year every year. 40,000 are all the income accounts, part sales, labor sales, sublet, supply charges, interest earned. You may be entering that in when you reconcile your bank statement, any interest earned for the month. And then 50,000 accounts are your cost of goods. And this is where you pile in all day long when you close out your ROs, parts, all the costs of doing business for the things that you sell. And then 60,000 account are expenses, overhead. And, you know, typically people think of these as overhead. They are wages, payroll taxes. You know, is probably the largest section of the chart of accounts, all those 60,000 accounts. And a lot of shops make a lot of custom expenses, expense accounts as well.
Okay.
So, again, kind of fundamental, but I just wanted to clarify this. And let's take a look back. The assets on the top are pretty much things the company owns. You know, the cash on hand, the inventory, the building, those are things that the company owns. Liabilities are things that the company owes other companies, things that your company owe the bank, things that your company owe the government that you need to remit these tax withholdings. Now, capital is the amount of money that the company owes to you. The company owes to the owner, or if you're a corporation, it's the amount of money that the company owes your stockholders. So that's pretty much your balance sheet. And the reason why people have a balance sheet is just to see what's my net worth. So it's not something that you typically reference on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes maybe not even on a monthly basis. But if you go to get a loan, or if you really want to get a complete picture of how well you're doing, this is where you look. A lot of people may be going through thinking, oh, my cash flow is wonderful. I've got lots of money in the bank. Yeah, but if you owe $50,000 in parts bills, we got to talk. So that's just why it's important to always integrate your balance sheet into the financial picture of your business. Now, looking at, again, income, cost of goods, expenses, of course, these are just generated by your day-to-day basis, day-to-day workflow. You're creating sales, and that's where the sales numbers come from. And as you sell your parts, they get moved off of the balance sheet and into your cost of goods. And then, of course, expenses are just the things, of course, we have to pay for all day long. Any questions so far on that upper part of this chart?
And all your accounts, and then go back.
Just a question. If we wanted to print this out or have a reference of this particular item that you're talking about, are we going to be able to have access to that?
I'll email it to everybody at the end of the webinar. Since I requested your email addresses when you registered, I'll shoot you a copy as soon as we're done. So then maybe the less kind of favorite part, I know a lot of people aren't thrilled about debits and credits and what do they mean. Because essentially you're looking at your chart of accounts and they're, what is a debit asset? What does that mean? What is why are these called debits and credits? Well, it goes back to the Roman Empire. We're not even going to go that far. But I kind of have a little chart down here that Rex actually showed me in 1992 when I wanted to learn how does accounting work in MaxxTraxx. And essentially, debiting a debit account increases it. That's why we have a plus sign there. If you debit a credit account, it decreases it. And I remember it this way. If the words match, the account goes up. Debit a debit account goes up. If you credit a credit account, the words match, the account goes up. And same, conversely, if you credit a debit account, you're reducing it. And likewise, of course, the last one is if you debit a credit account. So it's kind of wordy, and I don't expect, if people are kind of new to this part, this is something that you'll review over and over, and one day that light bulb will go on like it did for me, and all of a sudden this is going to make sense. But yes, I'll make this available to everybody. Any questions on the debit and credit?
No.
Okay, and I didn't want to belabor this too much. It's pretty simple. It's just if you go to make a general journal entry, that's how you do it. If you debit a debit account, it's going to go up. So let's just hop on over to Max. Okay, so in MaxxTraxx, essentially, why does this all matter? Well, let's start by saying that MaxxTraxx is a closed system. It's integrated accounting in a double-sided, closed, integrated general ledger, which means everything has to have both sides entered. There's nothing that ever can get lost in this system. If anything ever does go one-sided, we have this new feature called Edit Unbalanced Transactions, which I've only had to use 2 times, but boy, was it kind of slick to be able to go in and say, I don't have to figure out why I'm out of balance. The system now tells me, Sabrina, this half of your transaction is missing, so we're going to put it in a special little feature here for you to take care of it. But I think what's really important to understand is that everything is automated in MaxxTraxx. So if you are going up and doing a general journal entry, you always want to pause and think, why am I doing this? Because everything is already automated in the system, it means that you're bypassing something in the background. I can think of the only time that I ever do really a general journal entry is if I'm doing depreciation numbers that I get from my accountant. Because I'm by far not an accounting wizard, and I don't pretend to be one on TV. And so when I talk to you guys about accounting, a lot of us have done one-on-one training on this, is, you really do need to go to your accountant to make decisions on where to put things on your general ledger. Do you want to create additional accounts? How do you make adjustments? But from my perspective, and having been a user just like you all, I still need to know what's happening in the background, because if this were on pen or paper, I could figure it out on myself. I could figure it out on my own, but I can't tell what's always going on in the background. Well, another fundamental change that we have in MaxxTraxx from MaxxTraxx, since a lot of people on the call actually used to use MaxxTraxx, is we don't have a daily book anymore. It all is automated in real time because it's on a SQL database. So there's a lot of jargon, but essentially what this means is if I go into a ticket and I pay out this ticket, and I post my payment, it's going to automatically, let's put in, let's say I'm going to do a check. So what happens when I post a payment to a repair order? And I click finish. When I click finish, what happens here is I have done several things. I have taken the parts that were on that repair order out of inventory, out of 13,000 account, out of an asset account, and I've moved it to cost of goods. I have now added transactions to my 40,000 account, my income account, my sales account. If I'm paying flat rate, I've now put information under my employee productivity report, so when I pay him flat rate payroll, numbers are there. Sales tax. I have just impounded some sales tax from that closed RO to the sales tax impound account, 23600. So a lot of stuff goes on in the background that you really don't think about. You kind of take for granted, and all of a sudden we get these fantastic reports at the end of end of the month, end of the quarter, end of the year. So let's talk about parts a little bit. When we do a Restock Parts ticket and we enter a part in, let's just say for fun, let's grab something here. Okay, so I'm going to put an oil filter in here and make it $5. So when I hit OK, save, and post, what am I actually doing? Again, I'm updating my inventory, which is completely separate of my accounting, but I'm also, again, increasing my valuation of my parts account, my 13,000 account. But I'm also increasing my payables account, my liability account, my 20,000 account. And so, like I said, everything is double-sided, so we need to know how we're affecting the system. So then when I'll go to pay that NAPA bill, what exactly am I doing? What exactly is happening? So if I go to pay, well, I've got a lot of bills to pay to NAPA, and it's old. So when I go to tag these and pay them and write a check, so what am I actually doing here? I'm taking it out of my 20,000 account. I'm debiting a credit account, making it go down, and I'm also crediting my checking account, which is a debit account, so they don't match, so they're going down. So again, everything in the system is double-sided. So we just want to be real clear that everybody is on the same page about what's happening in the background. Any questions on this so far? Is this valuable? Are we answering some questions, or does everybody know this already? Is this pretty much old hat for everyone?
No, it's good to have a review here.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
It's always good to review.
Okay, so let me go, and I see that we've had some people join our call here in the last 10 minutes, so I'm going to activate some more folks that now. Rosemary, you now I have an audio. John at Quality Firestone, I have you on the call too. So if you guys, again, stop me and ask questions. In fact, why don't we stop right now? Is there anything that anybody has questions about in the system, what's happening automated in the background?
I have a question about what you just went over.
Okay.
This is Rosemary from Roger Krause Racing.
Yes.
My question is this. I just watched you add something to inventory, and then it automatically goes to be accounted for in the vendor files.
Right.
And then you went and you paid out of there. We don't
Yes.
currently have that set up. Is there a way for my guys to enter their inventory and then give me the invoice to enter? Because that's how it's set up right now for us. Of course, understanding we're coming from MaxxTraxx.
Right, right. You know, the workflow is a little bit different in MaxxTraxx than MaxxTraxx. And I've been working with a very large shop back east who unfortunately aren't on the call, and they have a very different workflow too, because a whole different department enters in Restock Parts tickets versus we have a completely different department that's writing service. So there's a little bit of a disconnect. And I think a lot of people have seen in this system, you know, if you order, you go into an RO and you put a part on here that you don't have in stock. Let's just put one on and get that warning. Let's see, we don't have one of those. Okay. So we see this little red circle with a slash through it. And again, for anybody that's doing accounting in MaxxTraxx, what this is telling us, like it used to tell us in MaxxTraxx, is this is a check mark. It's a short sale. It's saying that we don't have this part in stock. So this is a big workflow challenge for shops, like you just said, Rosemary, that are doing this in two different stages. now when we click OK Save, it gives us a warning, and it's saying, Sabrina, the following parts on your RO are not in stock. You need to order them. So you want to tag in that column and create the order. Now, a couple different ideas here. You could just tag in the column, start the purchase order, and create a new one, and save it for your parts people, and just tell them, or even print it and maybe throw it in an in basket for them. Because what I've just done, the parts order part, isn't affecting anything. It's just starting your data entry. So that when your parts people come from behind and go to Restock Parts ticket, instead of starting from fresh on a Restock Parts ticket, they would just go back to the order parts and then just convert that one that was already started by the service writers. And when they convert that, they can go ahead and just save it. And again, post it, put it on account. So when I actually hit the post and update inventory, again, what am I doing? I'm actually putting that part into our physical inventory list, and it's saying now I have a quantity of 1. It's affecting my general ledger because it's increasing my 13,000 account, my asset account, because it's now something I own. And then conversely, it's also making my liabilities go up because now I got to pay Napa for this part. So again, if we go back to this RO, that red circle and the slash is no longer there. So it's not warning us, hey, you've got to restock that part ticket into inventory. Now, the fact of the matter is that if you need to close out your RO before this part has been restocked, as long as under here, and again, I just double-clicked on the parts line, guys, and as long as on the lower left you click on your cost, there is a cost in here, it's going to be okay. Because when you, let's say I hadn't restocked that yet, again, still red circle. When I hit OK, save, and pay, what it's doing, see these 3 parts here, I have oil filter, synthetic oil, and this, I guess, fuel injector O-ring that I picked. I'm saying that these are in my 13,000 account, but because I know how much they cost, it's going to move that cost, that $10, it's going to move it from 13,000 to my 50,000 account, which is my cost of goods. So now when I go ahead and hit pay, it's just pulled it out of my inventory. And because I had a cost in there, it knew that I needed to move a quantity from 13,000 to 50,000. Now, I don't want to belabor it, but now let's go back to they finally get around to restocking that part. They're going to actually bring it from a -1 in inventory back up to 0, which is where we want it to be. And what's going to happen is they're going to automatically increase that 13,000 account. Now, in the old days, I call it the old days when I was a MaxxTraxx user, what would happen is you would need to tell the system, I need to manually move that to cost of goods because I posted this Restock part ticket after I closed my daily book. See, we have a little more flexibility in MaxxTraxx. We can actually close out an RO as long as it has a cost there, and it's going to flow correctly. The problem is that warning tells us that we may not have it in stock or we may not have a cost in there. And what happens if we end up getting that part from Napa and we costed it out at $10, but it really cost us $15? Now, the truth of the matter is, you guys all know this, you do inventory at the end of the year. If you have to do any inventory adjustments, the system does that automatically. We even have a slush fund for that. Let's go in here, the chart of counts, and see what it looks like. Oh, what's it called? Inventory valuation balancing account. And you'll notice this typically, well, I don't have anything in it right now. I didn't have any adjustments that I had to make. But the system will balance that out. It'll say, you may have bought 10 parts at $3, and now I'm going to say if you buy 10 more parts at $4, I'm going to make them all $3.50. So it's going to average it out. Now, if there's a couple pennies change, a little bit of change here and there, the system will automatically account for that. But most of the time, as you can see in my trial in this account, I actually don't have any adjustments. Nothing is been balanced in there. Nothing I have to worry about. In fact, I don't think I have. Do I have any in the last 3 months? Nope, no adjustments. So that is important, and that's why we always harp on you guys that it's so important to put your Restock Parts tickets in before you close out that RO, because that's how you keep your expenses, your cost of goods anyways, I should say, correct. Great question. A little long-winded answer there, Rosemary, but good question. Any other?
Question.
Yeah.
You just mentioned that it's common practice to make sure that you actually post your invoices before you close out the repair order.
Yes.
Now, how crucial is it that if you don't?
Well, if anybody has done training with me, which a few people on the call have, I'm the first person to say, don't you dare ever close out that ticket with the red circle and slash on it. And the reason why is, frankly, it could get really easy to start getting lazy about this. If, like I said, if this part has a cost, I'm okay. See? But there are times that we add parts, I'm trying to think of let's check them all. Is this all? Okay, these all do have costs. Of course, I don't have a bummer one in there. But let's say, for example, I'm going to add a part, and it's going to be test part 1, since I've done that several times. So if I put in a test part, and I go through, and I just want to get the darn thing on there, and I don't know what the cost is, but, I'm going to sell it for $5 because I just need to get the estimate going.
Right.
And it says, would you like to continue? Yes, I can. Even lets me save it, and I add it to my RO because, frankly, I just need to take care of my customer, and it's warning me. You see all these warnings? You have not entered a cost for this part, Sabrina. Are you sure you want to do this? I'm like, yeah, I want to do it. So, see, now we can't differentiate between these parts. Test part doesn't have a cost. The brake pads do.
Either.
Test part doesn't. So what's important here is that, I could even go in here and change my price, and I'm going to change my price. I'm going to sell it for $54. And see my profitability? 100%. You have not entered a cost. Are you sure you want to continue? Say yes. So I could just go ahead and pay this on through.
Won't change system boundaries.
And I could say, again, I'm going to bypass this. It's warning me. Look how many warnings we had, about a half a dozen here, right? So I'm going to say, go ahead, just post it with current cost.
These are the things.
Because, frankly, you have to sometimes just get the customer taken care of. So revision, look at all these warnings I'm just flying by. Again, I'm going to ignore this one, or exit without ordering. And see, it lets me pay it. It lets me do the whole darn thing. So that's why, I harp on people and I say, you know what? Don't post it off. If you got red circles in there, don't post it off. But again, the way you can go back, just so you know, if you want to go through each one and double check that you have a cost in here, you can see that's how you can get around that issue. Because what will happen is a little bit more disconnected, again, because it's on a SQL database, than MaxxTraxx. The system is smart enough now to say, okay, I'm going to take this $745 cost, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that under cost of goods. And if somewhere down the road somebody gets around to putting in that Restock Parts ticket, it's okay. Now, again, you might find out that the cost was a little bit different. So can you see how that would affect our profit and loss statement? It wouldn't be quite exact. That's a little bit why, we want to really hold you guys' feet to the fire. So I usually don't even tell people that. If they...
When you sell a part, when you sell a labor.
If they want to go ahead and post it off anyway, I'm like, okay. But it's not, I wouldn't recommend it. Great question. Very, very good question. Any more questions?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could go over the closeout process since there's no daily book. Was that basically it? Because I'm kind of lost without the daily book here.
I know. Well, I will admit to you, like I do with most people I do training in, my big boo-boo when I started using MaxxTraxx. So what happens is you close that out, and what it does is it automatically posts everything to the general ledger. It posts to your 40,000 account as sales. Again, it moves down to cost of goods. It puts sales tax in the impound account. Of course, it's posting everything in the vehicle history. If it's an AR charge, it's posting, to your, 12,000 account, I think, for receivables. So all this is going on in the background. So it throws every time you post off a ticket, like those 2 or 3 I just posted off, it goes into what we call, under the bank deposit selection, it goes into what we call undeposited funds. And these are select items to deposit. You can see I have a check, a debit card, couple of Visas. These are all not deposited, actually, into my bank account. So let's check and see where they are. If I were to go to my, let's go to my trial balance here.
And so you'll have...
You would see those are now thrown in to my undeposited funds account, which, of course, let's talk about it's an asset account. So here it is. And it's waiting for me to put this in the next line down into my checking account, number one. So the way that we do that is we go under banking, click on Make Bank Deposit, select which checking account I want it to go into, and I tag all my stuff. So let's see if I can clear it out. Look, I have $4,000 cash to deposit. That would be sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and click Next and Post and Close. Don't print. So now if I go back into my trial balance, it'll say right here, look, my undeposited funds is gone because I don't even have an amount in there. And now I have $10,000 in my checking account. So, okay, I'll tell you what happened to me. And this does happen. That's why I harp on this with a lot of folks, too. So the daily sales report, take a look at this. It looks kind of like the daily book.
So,
here's your sales numbers, total invoices. So you click over to balance drawer, and it says here, cash. And, okay, I count it, and I put the amount in, and I go in, and I reconcile. Yeah, I received all these checks. And Visa, yep, I got a couple of Visas. That looks good. See, I would do this at the end of every day. At the end of every day, I would go in, run my daily sales and cash drawer report, and yeah, everything would balance. My over short was 0. Proud. I did a great job today. And cash drop, okay, I always want to leave $100 in the drawer. Here's my cash drop for the day. So I would hit Close and Print. And if you've been on MaxxTraxx for over 6 months, you'll remember that this button used to say Post in Print. Well, in my mind, I was posting. I was doing everything. Really, all that really meant when that little word post just meant that this cash left in drawer for tomorrow of $100 would get put in the balance or beginning cash in drawer for tomorrow next time I open my daily sales report. So I was all proud. I hit Close and Print, and yes, I've chosen to leave $100 in the cash drawer, print on my reports, and I'd be done. Well, to my amazement, about February 5th or 6th, after I started using this January 2nd, 2008, I went into my checking account to reconcile it, and I didn't have, it was negative. It was like negative $90,000. And I'm like, where is all my money? What happened? Because I didn't realize, I thought actually as I was doing that daily sales report, just like I did in MaxxTraxx, I thought that it was going to be put in my bank account. But there's a two-step. You always had to go through, after you do your daily sales report, go in to make bank deposit and select all those items to be deposited. Of course, there's nothing in there to be deposited now. But that's very, very key. So if you were to, again, liken this to MaxxTraxx, and I hate to always go back to that, but we have so many MaxxTraxx people that have come over to MaxxTraxx. This is like a preliminary daily book where you're counting everything. You're even, printing up everything to make sure all your payments match, but it's not posting anywhere. So was that helpful? Does that clarify a little bit?
That was very helpful. That
Okay.
was very helpful. And you know what? That you're absolutely spot on with that. It's a preliminary daily book.
Exactly.
Because whereas the daily book finalized everything and made the deposit and everything transferred over, this just sets it up. But that second step is where you're actually showing the money going in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, thank goodness I had actually printed that out and very meticulously stapled all of my credit card slips in my batch report. And because I'm crazy detail-oriented, I took a photocopy of every check I deposited in the deposit slip and stapled them all. So I had my everything that happened in that shop for that one day, I had all stapled together in the drawer. So it wasn't a big deal for me to go back and make the deposits. But you'll notice when you go into make bank deposit, and you remember we, of course, I have nothing to put in here now. Let's give it something really quick. Pay, okay. Cancel. Oh, MaxxBucks feature, new feature, love it. I'm going to do a webinar on that probably next month. So if you guys want to see how that works, it's slick. Okay, I'm just putting a bunch of different payment methods in here so you can see what this will look like. Let's make a little bit of a Visa. I'll put and you know what, I've had customers like this. They give me every credit card they have in their purse and pay their bill. So again, remember I said everything happens in real time. So I just posted that. So now when I go into banking, make bank deposit, select which account I'm making the deposit in, there's all my activity. And it's by date. So I could, and it was actually not that hard. I could go back and just click everything that said January 2nd, tagged everything. Now this is the kicker. The cash to deposit in the lower right column. You see it says $100 available. So I needed to know out of each one of my deposits, how much did my cash, how much got deposited with my deposit slips? Now, like I said, I had a photocopy of every single deposit slip, so it wasn't that hard for me to do. But you'll remember as you go back to this make bank deposit, this cash to deposit parentheses could say $5,000 if you go 2 or 3 days without making a bank deposit. And then how exactly do you tease out? So how much did I actually take in on Monday? How much did I take in yesterday? How much did I take in today? So not only is this $100, this what's in your parentheses, tracking cash payments, let's take a quick look at the cash drawer. Because remember, we have cash payout and non-invoice cash in. And we're talking, you know, cash payout is how we track here actual money in coins. You know, how we actually paid cash for. Let's do one. Let's say we got the guy's pizza because they stuck around for a training webinar at work, and let's just call it lunch training. And then let's say pizza was, you know, $50 because I'm a great boss. And then I would put it here, office meals expense. So then I'm going to click finish. So what that just did in real time, let's go back to that banking, make bank deposit. Check out my parentheses. Do you see in real time that cash payment that I just took, that I just paid out of my cash drawer, came out of that parentheses. So again, when I talk about what's happening in the background, so much action is happening in the background. So really just understanding what each one of these features are doing, how it's affecting your banking, and of course ultimately how it affects your general ledger is, again, why we're doing this. So we have a real clear understanding. Any questions on that?
Yes, I have a question. This is Gail. I'm with Glenn's MG in Florida.
Hi. Hi.
And when you do your, like what you just did with your cash, you paid that Pizza Hut thing out of that?
Yes.
Now, sometimes I'll pay like a supplier or a sublet or for shop supplies and stuff like that. Do I need to post that also in that cash,
Oh, Gail,
tag?
brilliant
Or do I
question.
need to put that into the Restock Parts under the shop supply? Do I have to do both, or do I just do the one? That's confusing me.
Brilliant question. Thank you. Yes, keep in mind if it has anything to do with the part or shop supplies or sublet, again, you know, stuff that we track through the shop, you always still need to go through Restock Parts if it has anything to do with your inventory room, your parts room. So what we would do here, let's say I got a bunch of sanding wheels from Napa. Now I would put in, again, my target amount for my invoice. Now you can put shop supplies right here under miscellaneous charges. By the way, this miscellaneous charges goes to $50,800, which is my cost of goods sold miscellaneous supply. So I could just put the $24 in there. Or I could leave that zero. I could go up here under add line item and select on shop supply. And I don't know, what's the vendor number? Obviously, I'm not going to put this in my inventory, and I'm going to call them, you know, what do you call them, sanding pads, whatever the techs use, and $24. So when I select this, of course, there's no part number. It's not going into my inventory. But if I reference this, I'll know what I bought and what I spent it on. So again, if I click OK, Save, post and update inventory, but I pay cash for this. So I pay cash for this. I post it onto Napa's account, and then I go into Napa. This is a two-step process, guys. Great question. I'm so glad you asked it, Gail. So now I'm going to go into my vendor account and I'm going to pay that bill. Or you might remember this, we could always go into Pay Bills and click on Napa. Okay, so I'm going to untag these all. Let me get down to my $24 standing wheels. Here they are. So then I would click Next, and I would put payment method of cash. So that right here, so 24 bucks, I'm going to click Finish. Okay, so now if I go back in, this is a great reference point. If I go to my make bank deposit, see I'm down to 26 bucks because I just took 24 bucks out to pay my vendor.
Around line 1.
So that is real important that you know that if it has anything to do with inventory, shop supply, same for sublet, very good question. Because, you know, in MaxxTraxx, we just wrote a check, posted to $53,000, we're good. Or $53,000, $53,000 account, we're good. We didn't have to restock it. But in MaxxTraxx treats sublet as an inventory. Let's take a peek at, again, the chart of accounts. Inventory is $13,000. So check this out. Inventory, sublet labor. So it actually puts it into inventory. Now let's take a look at this. And hopefully this isn't too garbaged up from my being a trial system. But you can see, here's my vendor ID, and here's where I sold it, or I added it in. So these will always, typically always balance them out. See this 50 and this 50, this 50 and this 50? So obviously you can see I've put in a bunch of sublets that I haven't sold out yet, which I need to do. But again, practice version. So that's why even though it's a sublet, it treats it as an inventory part. You still need to enter that in. And then again, when you put that sublet onto your repair order, it has a little, it can have a red circle with a slash through it too, just like a part. And it will prompt you, Gail, did you get that, did you get those those rotors invoice from whomever, your machine shop, entered into the system? Because what's going to happen when we close our RO, or pay it and post it, it's going to take it from 13,000 account and it's going to dump it down to our 50,000 account. Let's take a peek where that would go. Cost of goods sold sublet. So again, that's why it has to have a cost.
I have a question. This is Glenn.
Okay.
When we receive a sublet, we might change the wording of the sublet on the invoice. And when we do that, MaxxTraxx loses track of it.
Huh, okay.
And sometimes, because my sublet jobs are like, I'll have one interior. And the note would be interior repair, but I might want to have on the repair order, I might want it to say fabricate trim panel.
Absolutely.
Now, if I go back to that repair order later, after I've received fabricate trim panel and change the wording, MaxxTraxx seems to lose it.
You know what? Great question. Let me do a little research on that offline, Glenn, and I will go ahead and do some research and respond to you in email. Okay. And is it okay if I share our response with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. So anybody that's on the call, I will go ahead at the end of the webinar, like I said, send you an email, so then you'll have my email. And then, so I can send you a copy of this chart that we went over. Which one is it? This one. I'll send this to everyone. And then I'll also give you a response to Glenn's question once we get that research. Great question. I don't know. We'll look into that. So good question. So keep in mind, anytime it has to do with anything that you put on the car, be it shop supply, a part, sublet work that you may do, you're always going to want to track it through your Restock Parts, or create a purchase order first and then convert it to the Restock Parts. And right now, what we're doing is every time, this happened to me in the beginning all the time, and there was a feature all along, just like our quick check feature that we had in MaxxTraxx, and I didn't even know it till a month ago, and I've been working on MaxxTraxx for over 2 years, that let's say you get a parts delivery, and it's from the dealer, you're not on account with this one particular dealer, and you need to get the parts driver a check. And you're like, wow, I got an RO here, a Restock Parts ticket here with 10 items on it. You're not going to make the guy stand there and wait. So what you do, you just go into write check. Let's put in, WABCO. So I'm going to make the check payable to WABCO. I'm going to write them a check for $150. I don't even know what we bought for these guys. And I'm going to tab down and disperse it to the 20,000 account. And when I click on 20,000 account, it's going to payables trade. And the system knows WABCO is a vendor, and it's being dispersed to 20,000 account. I'm going to put this $150 on the WABCO account as a credit until that Restock Parts ticket gets loaded in. So if I click OK, and I post my check, and let's say I print it. Okay, so now if I go to vendor, look up on my accounts payable vendor list, and I go to WABCO, see, I have this credit, $150. So then, and obviously I owe them a bunch of other stuff too, but let's just for example, it's $150. So then when I have time to do it, I go into my Restock Parts, I create my invoice for WABCO, it's $150. You know, I could buy, you know, I could have to, you know how this could be. You could have to enter in, you know, a dozen different parts if you have a bunch of little nuts and bolts. That can happen. So I am going through, I'm just going to, and I'm just throwing stuff on here, guys, for the example. Throw that on there. Let's put on one more part from, here we go. And it's $35. Let's just, I don't even know what this stuff is. And OK, save, and I post and update inventory. And I click OK. And then I go into vendor, and I go into WABCO, because I want to go ahead and pay this off. I'm on cash with these guys. Why would I even have these in here? And, of course, I had some other stuff in there. But you can see here's my $150 credit for that check that I wrote, and here's my $150 invoice, Restock Parts invoice, that I just entered from my vendor. I click Next, and because it forces you to choose something, guys, you have to click on Cash. And then click Finish, and it's for $0 anyway, but it forces you to pick something. Pick Cash, click Finish, and that's how you do it. That's kind of like a quick check feature. But it's not actually posting it to Quick Check. Remember, it would post it, I think, to a 19900 account. It's actually posting it as a credit to the 20,000 account. Was that clear? Okay. Any other questions, guys? You've got some fantastic ones, and you know what other people are thinking the same thing, so.
Well, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
This has nothing to do with what you're talking about currently, but on taxes, on
yes.
Sales tax, every month we're having to go back through each individual invoice and count the labor, count the, add up the labor, add up the parts, and manually figure out what our tax bill is every quarter.
Right.
Will this program actually figure out exactly what the taxes we're actually going to have to pay to the penny?
Yeah, it actually, under Reports, John, you just go under Financial, and let's see, Tax Summary, is this one it? I think this is what we put in. Let's say, what is our, let's do it for January. Let's say, because we're paying last month. We're meeting our sales tax for last month. So I go through the 31st. Okay, so here, oh, so teeny tiny, going blind here. It tells us all of our, anything that was taxable or non-taxed, breaks it all down, and it does tell us in the lower right corner, I don't know if you can even see this, it's so teeny. Let me go up to, okay. You can see 1863. That's our total amount tax collected. And then, of course, once you figure this all out, let's say you were actually, really diligent, and before nightfall on the 31st of January, you were to go in and figure out what your tax form is going to be for the month of January. If you were to go into the chart of accounts and go into 2360, okay.
Oh.
23600, which is our sales tax impound account. It's where it accrues. You would have this ending balance would match that report. And then what happens is as you write a check and you post it off to that 23600, it zeroes this out every months after you remit your sales tax. Now, of course, you don't usually, depending on what state you're in, you may remit it on the 15th or the 20th, or I think maybe on the 25th for some of the states. So you're always going to have an amount left in there because you're going to have the amount of sales tax collected from February 1st through February 20th when you write that check. But you can see how every single time I close out an invoice, every single time, it's throwing a transaction on there.
Well,
now, here's the thing, though, is if you got...
And you're on the current version,
actually,
so that's cool.
the pay.
So really all we'll have to do...
Oh, hold on a sec. There, John, somebody's talking, and I can't tell who it is, and I can't hear.
Hold on a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Does this thing, will actually tell me what it's gonna, what it tells us to pay the state?
Yes.
Or does it just give you the numbers we need to make our equation?
It's going to tell you the numbers to make your equation. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, right. You may have city, county, state. Yeah. So you still have to fill out your form. And the reason why many people ask us that, especially about state income tax, the reason is we have 50 different states, and all the states do it differently.
Okay.
So if we had one easy way, we would do it. You know, now that we just mentioned this, let's also talk about impound accounts when you have to remit for state income, income tax, federal income tax, and FICA, which in the system it says FICA, but everybody knows that's Social Security, by the way, for Social Security and Medicare. So when I go into payroll, again, I want you to know what's going on in the background, what's creating this. And I select to, I think, semi-monthly. I'm just going to leave these dates, let them fall to what they may. And I write myself a check. And so essentially, well, let me give myself a raise so I have a little more something to look at. And maybe my boss will look at this and give me a raise. But you can see, so this is my gross. And then I have, so this is my federal tax, my Social Security. I guess I don't even make enough for state income tax. But also under here where it says employer amounts, it also says, here's my Social Security tax for the employer side. Here's my FUTA, here's my SUTA. So what's happening when I do this paycheck, this is, of course, one of the most amazing parts of the program, too. If I click on Next Employee and said, well, do I want to print these now? Yeah, go ahead. We'll print them now. And hit print. So, yeah, they did. Would you like to enter more? No. So what just happened with that transaction? Let's take a peek. So, excuse me, if I go into Chart of Accounts, and I think I can just go into my checking account. Yeah. Kind of nice, guys, by the way. We didn't have this in MaxxTraxx. If you just go into Accounting and click on Chart of Accounts, and you click on this one account that was involved in that big transaction, it lets us edit it and look at the whole transaction. So check this out. Let's say this is what happened. Money came out of my checking account. Now, this is pretty complicated, but follow me. It's brilliant. It's really brilliant. $1,952 come out of my checking account. Here's, this goes to my $60,000 account, expenses for my wages. Here's my federal income tax accrual. Again, remember, 20,000 accounts are liability accounts. Remember, impounds for withholding, tax withholding. So all these three on the employee, that's coming out of my paycheck, is being in that holding account for them to pay later, pay on the 15th. My Social Security, again, is an expense. This is my employer matching side. There's my Social Security and my Medicare. And then again, the employer matching is also going into its own impound account, its own accrual account. So a lot of action kind of happens with this check. And check this out. Again, FUTA that goes into the federal unemployment tax impound account and kicks on the other side. There's my expense. Again, same thing with the state unemployment. There's my impound account and my expense. So you can see the system is doing an amazing amount of stuff in the background. So we don't have to go in and make all these manual adjustments. So it's very important to know, very important to remember how that all works. If we have Derek still on the call, I was working with him and his dad last week about this, and boy, did we get quite an education. So you really want to understand that this affects so many different parts of the system at once. So any questions on where all that stuff is flowing in the background?
I do. I have one question, and it's in regards to when you were covering sales tax and showing the summary for that.
Yes.
Is there, and this is Rosemary from Roger Krause Tires,
Okay.
is there a report that's comparable to the tax district's breakdown on the paid invoice summary from MaxxTraxx? Because that was really helpful to me, and just like that other person, that other gentleman's question was, will it do the calculations for you?
Right.
My predecessor actually set up a fantastic spreadsheet in Excel that does all the calculations for me, but I need this report that shows the different tax summaries for our different districts, and I plug it into that spreadsheet, and then wham, bam, it gives me what I need. Is that available still in MaxxTraxx?
You know what, and if I'm understanding your question correctly, Rosemary, okay, great question. This is a sales summary again. This is a report. And this will give us all the different breakdowns. Now I may have multiple, I don't on this case, but you know, I can put in different, under setups, under accounting and payroll, sales tax rates, I can put in multiple different tax rates. Now, when I set up my default tax rate when I was doing MaxxTraxx as a user, again with pretty much zero training before I got going, big mistake, I actually did. I called this up here. I called this my Colorado sales tax. I was in Colorado, by the way, at the time, and I put in here. I broke it down. I put down state, and I think it was 2%, and then I broke down. I think it was county. I got to activate it, and I put in El Paso, which was my county. I think this is the way I did it, and it was like 2%, or I think this was like 2.5. And then I had I activated number 3, and I put Colorado Springs City. Colorado Springs had its own rate, so I think it came up something like that. It was like 1.75. So when I totaled this all up. Of course, it won't be applied to previous ones. Let me see if this would work. Oh, you know what? I put it all. Did I put it all in the parts rate? Use tax type 3. God, let me double check on this. I don't know if this is exactly how I did it. Maybe not. Maybe not. Let me do a little research on that, Rosemary, because I think that.
You know what? I can see from here that actually that's going to be perfect. But what it is that California just has so many different counties with tax rates that apply that I wouldn't set it up by state. Each tax code would be a different county for us that we sell in, and I would refer to it as that.
Then you know what? Yeah, ignore what I said. You're right. That would be the better way to do it. I would just add for each county tax code by county, and then just set that up. And then if you do this. I know that if you put a certain rate in here, let's just put 8.5, I don't know what it is, and we run, and you actually select this for a customer, of course it's going to throw everything that, that's tagged to that, every RO that has that sales tax rate into its own page on that report. So you could have multiple. Luckily for most shops, they're doing it at, at the site of the actual automotive repair facility, so they only have to worry about one. But if you're selling parts to different counties, you have to do that. Out of state, of course, isn't a problem right now, but God knows our government will see if they can change that. So, I think we can play around with this a little bit, but just by creating an additional tax rate would be great. And like I said, that will break it out on the report. So good question. Really good question. Any other questions?
I have one question. I have one question.
Okay.
And it goes back to the daily sales, something that you said earlier. When you close out the daily sales, and you're telling me that's not like closing the daily book in MaxxTraxx?
No, it does not. It does not post anywhere.
Okay, so you could do that daily sales every day if you wanted to, and then just the only time it posts is when you go to make the bank deposit.
And that actually, believe it or not, this is Randy.
Yes.
Believe it or not, there are some shops out there that don't do their daily sales book at all. or daily sales. This is a daily sales and cash drawer reconciliation report. That's what it's called, where you are looking at your daily sales. And
we've just been doing it once a month.
And that's okay as long as you've been able to work with, make the banking and make bank deposit. And if you do this on a daily basis and you fill out your deposit slip and you're really keeping track, you would know exactly how much of this money in the parentheses you would have to deposit. See, this is just not my favorite because it doesn't break down my detail. And there are some shops I've talked to and trained that they say, we don't handle cash, Sabrina, don't even go there. I mean, we don't handle cash. But in our shop that we worked in, it was like a candy store. People would just reach in, grab a 20, and then stuff a receipt back in there, by the end of the day. Let's say they grabbed a 20, they had to put fuel in a customer's vehicle that was brought in for a drivability issue on empty. It happens all the time. And so we would have to go put some gas in it, so they put $10 in it, and they put the other, put the $10 left from the $20 bill and the receipt, and they shove it in the drawer. So a lot of people use that cash drawer, this cash drawer, the money bag, a lot. We did. If you don't, it's not that hard to track. But if you have a lot of fingers in that cash drawer, like I said, for pizza, car wash, or, just buying office supplies, or it could just be all sorts of different things, then you would want to run it.
But it's strange it's not posting it anywhere. That's what surprised me.
It is very strange that way. And were you a MaxxTraxx user, Randy?
Yes.
Okay, that's why. I mean, let me tell you my shock in February when I called Rhonda. I mean, she laughed and fell out of her chair. I mean, she just thought I was hilarious. But I had no idea. I thought I was being real diligent. That's what I did for how many, a decade in MaxxTraxx. I thought I was doing great. So the thing about the daily sales is, I can go back and rerun it for any date range I want. You see how I'm going back in here and I'm going to put in, because I already ran it once, I'm going to go ahead and run it again. I could balance my drawer and put 890.51, and I have to put a starting balance in. I don't know what my beginning drawer would have been on the first particularly. But as I go through and I select all this, and, I mean, literally, I'm just going through and
it's not doing anything.
It's not doing anything. Yeah, if I go through here and I go ahead and I close and print, and I used to say post and print, but now it just says close and print, which is really all you're doing is closing your screen. Nothing happened. So I could go back in there. I could do it over and over and over again.
When you did that, it did stuff.
Oh, it was the end of your world. I mean, how many times, are you at the shop till 8:30 at night? Because I am not leaving today without closing my daily book. So we don't have that limitation anymore in MaxxTraxx. And also, after you close the daily book, what happens if you need to change something or void something? See, we have the ability in MaxxTraxx to go into, and this is a great tool, go into your cash drawer, view a current cash drawer transaction. Let's say I want to view a transaction I did on the 3rd. I could go back on the 3rd, say, oh, I put this through, and it's invoice 1282, and look, I paid cash of $50 and a check of $88.52. You know what? It really was, it was a Visa. Let's say it was a Visa for $50. So I just void payment. Oh, and this says right here, you cannot void or delete this item because it is on the deposited listed below. Well, you know what we can do? You have to tease it backwards a little bit, but I go into banking, I go into my view check register, and here's my deposit. I could void my deposit. In fact, let me check and see if it's in there. 12082. No, not in that one. What about this deposit? 12082. It's right here. See? So then what I would do is I would track that, 963981. I'm actually writing that down, and I know that in this deposit, I cleaned this up actually right before we started the webinar, $8,000 worth of cash in my demo version. Just click void. Are you sure you want to void it? Yeah, absolutely. So now I've voided it. Now I could go back in, view my current cash drawer transactions. I can't even really remember what day that was. I think it was the 3rd. Here it is. Now it'll let me void my payment. And, of course, it's warning me this item will result in the entire repair order being voided, all the payments, and they put it back on the schedule. So I always, by the way, before I ever void these, I always write down what was my date. Okay, it was 2/3, and I know it was 8852. You can see over here on the right, check number 15, because it's going to ask me that. Because once I void it, that information's gone. That information. So I want to continue, yes. So now, and I hit refresh. Here it is. And I want to pay it out. Oh, look at all that junk on there. Don't look. And I pay it out. So now I can go ahead and change. Look at all these warnings. Now I can change it and say I meant to do Visa for $50. Remember? And then how did I pay the other? Oh, check. But remember, I needed to write down that check number, which I did. Smart me. Oh, and the most important part, I've done this 1,000 times. You have to change the date up here to the 3rd again. Because I'll post it on the 17th and go,
that'll in the order that it should be in.
Correct. And if you put the 17th, all you do, frankly, like I said, I've done it a million times, you go back into the money bag, and you just go back and you void it again and redo it again. And you could do it over and over again. Now, of course, after I've reposted that, I want to go back to my bank deposit. Because remember, these are all my stuff that I unselected. In fact, I don't want to undo them all. I think this was the amount, right? And I put 8,000. Oops, 80,000. That'd be nice. 9639. So I've tagged one thing too much. Some $50. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, remember, I added a Visa instead of a check, so that's why I'm off by a little bit. So I just, need to make sure, okay, I did want to have the $50. There it is. I wanted to put that $50 in. Or, no, I guess I don't. I have to probably go the other direction. I have to take $50 cash out of here, remember? Because I put it originally as cash, and now I'm making it Visa.
Yeah.
So this is forcing me to, check my numbers. Now I hit next, and now I hit, and this is going away, by the way, this void thing. It's a bug. It's going away. Go ahead and click post and close. So that's kind of how you get to undo your boo-boos in MaxxTraxx, where in MotorTraxx you had to part the Red Sea to get anything changed. So there's a lot of really nice features that allows us to make corrections. So
thank you.
Okay. Well, I hope this was valuable for everyone. I hope that we got some issues covered that you guys had in mind. Any other questions? Kind of getting ready to wrap up here.
Nope, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Sabrina.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll shoot everybody a quick email with a copy of this this document that I wrote up. Again, it was just kind of something to give you guys, something to just wrap your mind around, general journal entries. But again, if you're making a general journal entry, always ask yourself, why am I doing this? Because remember, everything's pretty much, other than logging depreciation, is automated in the system. So I'll email this to everyone, and then you'll have my email. And if you have any questions, just email me back. And I'm also going to ask everybody to email me some recommendations of other webinars you guys would like to have down the road. And we'll go ahead and get them scheduled, okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody have a wonderful evening. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you very much,
Okay,
Sabrina.
sure. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.